Hey guys, this is Rick coming at you with Weed to No Basis, the podcast for all things cannabis business related. Are you an entrepreneur? Have something you wanted to create, something you wanted to bring to life in the cannabis industry? Maybe you've always wanted to partake in one of the biggest industries in modern day history. This is the podcast to listen to. Guys, we're live, and if you're listening to this or watching this episode today, or tonight, or weekend, whenever you're turning this on, it's because you two are on a Weed to No basis. So today I'm super stoked. I'm freaking stoked every day, but have a good friend, and she's about an hour away from me as we're talking. So we're really pretty close. And this is Shayda Torabi, and she's up in Austin, Texas. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so good. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Rick.
Nice. It's and I'm glad we've kind of crossed paths socially, like social media.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we're literally like geographically an hour away from each other, and then we crossed paths in person in Miami of all places, not even Texas. And I'm like, you know what? I talked to my wife Lisa after we met and hung out for a while in Miami, and I'm like, why haven't we had Shayda on the show? Like, she's like dynamic and spunky and energetic and doing cool things. Tell us what you're doing. Like, I don't want to and I'll fill in the gaps, but okay. I know you're not a shy person, but tell the audience what you're doing for and in the industry today.
Yes, thank you. So my sister and I co-founded Restart CBD. So we are an education-first CBD wellness brand. We launched a year ago. Actually, this weekend we celebrated our 1-year anniversary. So that was a really great, exciting milestone for us to achieve.
Yay,
yes, super
congrats.
thumbs up, more to learn, more to grow through. But that was a really fun milestone because when we originally launched a year ago, we were an e-commerce-based business. My background is digital marketing, hosting, infrastructure, and like any millennial, in the space wants to kind of be online first. And online was a challenge for us when we first launched, I think, just given the infrastructures that will support us, the solutions that will support us, as well as the payment merchants and processing both in-store and e-commerce. And so we ended up having an opportunity to launch a retail business. And so I would say retail is my primary brand that we operate today. And then we are ramping up our e-commerce business. But yeah, we launched a year ago. I got exposed to CBD 3 years ago when I was recovering from a car accident. Hopefully this is a super safe space for cannabis users and canna-friendly, people alike. Big cannabis user, love the THC side of the house, had been consuming for about a decade plus. And 3 years ago, I found myself in a car accident where I fractured my pelvis in 2 places and was consuming cannabis before the accident, after the accident, with how cannabis works, it makes you feel chilled out and mellowed out. And I was appreciating that aspect of it, but from a pain management perspective, I wasn't really tapping into those benefits of cannabis. And so it was actually my mom who knew of my use of the marijuana side, the THC side, and suggested CBD to me. But at the time, CBD was not readily available. It wasn't really discussed. I held a position formally at a pretty large tech company where I was very public facing and couldn't really talk openly about cannabis. And so I was 8 months post-accident, got introduced to CBD by my mom, started taking it. Within 3 weeks, found just tremendous, life-changing, obviously, to be in this position now, benefits, relief from this plant, which now we know comes from industrial hemp primarily. And so again, that was 3 years ago. My family and I got really excited about CBD, but nobody was really talking about it at that scale. And so that's where about a year ago, my sister and I decided, hey, we've had personal benefit with this. My sister is also a University of Texas former athlete, current Under Armour sponsored athlete. And so she really comes to the conversation from the recovery, athletic side of the house, just physical wellness. And we kind of like, let's put our heads together, the yin and the yang of THC and CBD, and really create a brand that that's primary focus is educating consumers. And so that's what we've been doing for the last year, is just telling our story, connecting through platforms like yours, as well as speaking across the country, and really just creating a safe space for people to be canna curious.
Nice. I love it. I want you all in the audience, whether you're listening or watching this, to I always compel you to take note of the things that are between the lines. The things you hear things, obviously. You heard Shayda's journey and being a consumer for over a decade. Where I want to dig into is some of the between the lines stuff. And so, but I really want to compel the listener to listen not just to the story, but the stuff you don't hear. So you've been a consumer for 10 years, and no shame. I mean, this is a safe place. This is
Right.
this, whether we like it or not, whether a listener or viewer likes it or not, it's here, and it's here to stay in a big way.
That's right.
So 10 years as a consumer, you were you had a tech, you worked forward-facing position in a tech company. So still not a cannabis business owner per se. And you had your 1-year anniversary of Restart CBD up in Austin, your brick and mortar store. But you mentioned that you started initially as an e-commerce. So what was the inflection point? Because if we really drill it down, you're a consumer for 10 years. So you're already a fan of the plant. You are working in it for a tech company. What was the moment where you decided, maybe somewhere over a year and a half or 2 years ago, you and your sister said, let's start this e-commerce business? Because of why? I'm curious.
That's a really great question. So I kind of drill it down to three instances, three events that happened externally that really allowed my sister and I to, we launched over, is it Labor Day or Memorial Day? I forget what just happened. It was Labor Day, I think is what happened end of August, September. So we took a long 3-day weekend and we put our heads together after experiencing these three kind of external things that happened. One, we saw a local juice company. So I know that incorporating CBD into food and beverages is kind of a new trendy thing now. A year ago, we saw a local juice company be the first in our market to really do that. And that was a big signifier for me of like, hey, people are putting this on menus and consumers are going to start asking questions and want to talk about CBD, want to talk about cannabis. And so I think that was like a aha moment. Another one, we happened to catch I think it was a Dr. Oz episode that had happened pretty early on over the past, 2 years. My sister brought it to my attention. She's like, hey, Dr. Oz is talking about this. And so again, I was like, oh, if these, medical professionals with these platforms are talking about this, there has to be some pattern that's emerging. And then the third one was, I had a close friend who knew of my use of marijuana, but had no idea that I was using CBD for recovery or that I even knew what CBD was. And the sidebar is, yes, I was a cannabis consumer for a decade and had no idea about CBD, CBG, CBN, all the other cannabinoids and their different profiles and things like that. And so, you can exist in a space and know a lot about a particular aspect of the plant, but I didn't know what I didn't know. And so it took a friend kind of acknowledging out loud to me saying, hey, I heard that there's this non-psychoactive cannabinoid called CBD. What do you know about it? And because I had used CBD to recover, again, my cool mom, she brought it up to me. She's into natural medicine and things like that. Like as a kid, I would get my thyroid checked. I would take oregano pills, just like anything kind of like natural herbal Chinese medicine focused. And so when my mom approached me, I remember Googling it. I remember going, yeah, I know what CBD is and it comes from cannabis. Okay, mom, I'm probably getting enough of it because I'm smoking every day. And when I Googled it, I was like, oh, CBD is like in the plant. Like, okay, I got it. Still was super skeptical when my mom was like introducing me to the product. So 3 years ago, there were maybe a handful of national brands that we still probably recognize today that existed, but the accessibility wasn't there. I mean, it just became federally legal, a year ago, really. So it was a gray area. So my mom, I kid you not, was sourcing from overseas, raw materials. Our current line, the foundation of that was what my mom was originally giving to me when I was recovering from the accident. I remember she made me a topical salve. She made me a really janky vape because I loved to vape at the time. And she made me a sublingual tincture. And I couldn't tell you how many doses, I couldn't tell you how many milligrams I was consuming, but I was just kind of blindly taking the product. And so it was working for me to the extent that I was like, okay, I like CBD, this works. So then fast forward about a year ago when my friend and this juice company and this Dr. Oz episode happened, I was like, well, I know it works, but I don't know where to get information about it. And I don't know how to find products that don't have ingredients that I can't pronounce. My sister's influence to our business is she's paleo. I'm paleo now, but she really is paleo minded. She has a nutrition background from the University of Texas. wants to know what's in ingredients, wants to understand, what a label says, dosing, how much is in the bottle, what size bottle is it. And so they sound like really rudimentary, fundamental, foundational concepts. But when you look at the landscape of cannabis and CBD, really even in today's market, it's still unregulated and nobody's telling us what to put on labels or how to talk about things. And part of that is a legal issue. And part of that is just we don't know what we don't know. And so we saw an opportunity to really come to market with a minimal ingredient product. So that was our initial line. We launched an isolate-based 3 strengths, different, milligram doses, increasing in strength line, because we wanted people to know that they could have a quality product that didn't have this laundry list of ingredients, and it was sourced from quality ingredients, and we knew that it was effective for us. And if we could just package it in a way that the consumer felt confident and had access to information, then maybe we'd have a business. And so we took that long 3-day weekend, came up with a logo, came up with a name, came up with a website. And because my background was digital marketing, a website was an easy next step. So set up a website to kind of prove the concept, set it and forget it. And, we'll get into it. They say the rest is history. That was the beginning of us kind of leaning into this business that we've been building and this brand that we've been building.
Nice. I love it. And I love that you specifically say there were 3 reasons. So, because some of the things we talk about, especially with our consultancy and with our mastermind group is you have to begin with, one of the things I point to is a noble cause. And that's, some people classify that as your why or your reason, but the noble cause. And you were kind of, in a sense, living it. You were going through, because of an accident, you were already a consumer. And then, my words, not yours, but basically through those 3 things that you mentioned, including the cool mom. So what's your mom's name, by the way?
Our mom's name is Jennifer, and she is the coolest.
What's up, Jennifer? Cool mom. So when she watches this, hey, Jennifer, if I can call her Jennifer. So
you can absolutely call her Jennifer.
Nice. Jennifer should meet my cool mom, Alma. My mom lives in Nevada, in Reno. She's actually coming down tomorrow night as we record this. So
is your mom going to be in Vegas?
She was in Reno. And
is she going to be in Vegas when you're speaking?
She's in Reno. She was in, where was she last? She goes to, I'm actually going to be speaking in Austin. She's going to go with me to Austin. So I'm trying to figure out what's the time. She might be. She's on.
We'll talk. We'll figure out how to get our moms together.
Yes. Cool mom. Cool Moms Unite. We have the Cool Moms Unite Club, right?
We just made, my sister and I, our hashtag, we kind of have identified ourselves because we're very iconic. Sidebar about my sister and I, we're both, I don't necessarily love the word influencers, but we run pretty well-known social accounts in Austin. And so we're very public facing Austinites. And so we've coined ourselves the CBD sisters. So hashtag CBD sisters.
Love it.
We just lovingly made our mom a hashtag CBD mom hat. And I jokingly want to also make her shirt that says, like, I'm the mom, because we obviously talk about our mom's inspiration for our business, but she's very lovingly behind the scenes. And if you come to the store, you'll see her. She's very involved in the business. But she lets my sister and I kind of be the face of it. But I want her to have a shirt that's like, I'm the mom. Like, you're the mom in the story. Like,
how funny. So you're the cool mom.
Yeah, you're the cool mom. So yeah, I've got to make her some fun restart swag.
Cool. That's pretty cool. I like that. Okay, so you're a consumer. You have your noble cause. You were a consumer because of a natural part of your upbringing, a very natural. This was a way for you to maintain the semblance of painless life, or relatively, through the accident. You saw the 3 things happen. And I remember that Dr. Oz thing come out, and it suddenly was on the consciousness of a lot of people.
Right. They were wanting information, but then when you were looking at the market, you were looking at brands, they weren't, because part of it is the legal side. Like, you can't really say, hey, take this for anxiety, take this for sleep, although we know that there's a lot of benefits for CBD for those things. And so we boldly wanted to, to the best that we could, be that space, which I think is why the brick and mortar was so, to dovetail kind of into that for a sec, I think that's where we quickly saw the brick and mortar was a necessity for us and our brand, because online you were still facing the same thing. You could have a blog, you could have a video that kind of explained it, but so many of our customers wanted to come talk. They wanted to come have a conversation with me and my sister. They wanted that consultative approach. And so we've seen success with our brand because of creating, again, that safe space for people to ask questions. I can't even begin to express how many people come in and they're like, is this a safe space? I go, of course. And they go, okay, I've heard a lot. I smoke a lot of pot. I have questions. How is this going to work? And you're just like, yes, I love it. And so we see people from all walks of life. I kid you not. Millennials bringing in their, baby boomer parents, the baby boomers bringing in their baby boomer friends. You see young, old, you see in pain, looking for help with just general anxiety. You have people who are very big fans of cannabis in general, and you have people who are very skeptical and very concerned and very curious what's going to happen when they put it in their body. And so we see all these as being great touch points to have this conversation for cannabis, because like you acknowledged in the beginning of this, it's happening whether we like it or not. And so our perspective is, if I can help reshape that conversation in my corner of the world, maybe we'll have better cannabis laws and access to better quality of both information and products on a mass scale. And so that's what we try to just do, is connect the dots for consumers from all walks of life.
Totally get it, and I like it. And I just want to remind everybody that when you, the intro that we talked about was that you deliver your business with a consultative approach. So you literally from the beginning had an educational component from the get-go. Like and I think that's one of the reasons why that sets you guys apart. Not only that, and the hashtag CBD sisters and hashtag CBD mom, the cool mom, Jennifer, I'm going to call her. Tell me your sister's name so we can just do a shout out.
Yeah, Sydney is my sister and co-founder.
Sydney. Is she younger?
My little sister. Yeah, she's my little sister.
Nice.
Sometimes I feel like, oh man, I wrote my sister into, the devil's weed, job. And she's really stepped up to really own and I think address a really big part of the conversation. And so I say this very publicly, again, when we launched the brand, meaning I knew when we launched, I was not launching the brand necessarily for the me's of the world, the people who knew what cannabis was, who were comfortable with it. I'm a little bit of a rough and tough type of gal who will try different products, see what works. If it doesn't, move on to the next one. But Sydney really comes from what's going in her body. Everything is calculated. She wants to know if it's going to potentially contain THC, because she is, I can't say anti-THC, but for her body, she doesn't want it in there, especially when she was going to University of Texas and drug testing and things like that. So she had that concern. And so it's really fun to build a brand with someone who is really in my opinion, the general consumer. They're the Sydneys of the world. They're the people who are like, look, I get drug tested, or I've had THC in the past, or we had a guy come in the other day. He's like, okay, if I put this in my body, what's going to happen? And you're like, whoa, 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 nothing. And he's like, but it has trace amounts of THC. Am I going to get stoned? I don't want to get stoned. And you're like, okay, sir, I need you to calm down. I hear you. I want to help you understand it. But that's a very extreme example of who, again, I think a lot of the consumers are. They're people who have a lot of questions. They don't really know where to start. And so as much as I want to be marketing and selling to the me's of the world who are like, yeah, cannabis, let's vote for it, let's make it legal, I want the Sydneys of the world, because Sydney always used to kind of look at me as like her, stoner sister. And now, especially from the recovery aspect, she's seen such an improvement in the quality of my life and now her own life, now that she's adopted it over the past 2 years, that it's like, whoa, cannabis isn't what, media has painted it to be all these years. And so really opening that dialogue up for the everyday regular consumer to find value and see themselves a part of this overall cannabis narrative that I think that we're trying to all cohesively and, connectedly tell.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I'm having a surreal moment, and here's the reason why, is because I was raised anti-cannabis. I was raised, devil's lettuce, and I as few as 5 years ago, I would never have envisioned being involved as heavily as I am, as we are in the industry. Right. So to have conversations now with people of all genders, sexes, ages about marijuana, cannabis, CBD, and when you said stoner sister, I'm just like, that doesn't even faze me anymore. Yeah. And so I'm sitting here when you said that going, holy crap, that doesn't even faze me. It's a brave new world, and words and phrases like that, these are going to be, instead of, hey, like the guy you described in your story, hey bro, take a chill pill. It's going to be, hey bro, take a CBD pill. It's going to replace our vernacular and how we approach folks. But I want to segue into something different, because you shared your part of the reason why you have been a consumer for a while, and why you decided to, let's say, bring your sister and your cool mom and side by side. I envision the three of you locked arms now. The e-commerce. And that has its own challenges. And we address a lot of that in other episodes with merchant processing and
Yes.
Oh my God. And
check, all those nightmare boxes.
Oh my goodness. I totally agree. And again, folks, we're not going to dive into that here because we actually had a merchant processing company in a prior episode called Who is Merchant X? And they shared their, like, literally live, there is no foreseeable solution for the average CBD e-commerce startup. And so, but what makes you guys even more unique, in my opinion, and is a few things. One, you're female owned, and I dig that. I have daughters, and I am pro women of weed, women taking the reins, and so I dig that. Yeah, woo woo. But the other thing is that you speak, like, you don't just educate, and I want to be clear to folks, it's not just handing out pamphlets or talking with folks as they walk into the store or online or Instagram. You're on the road. And if people didn't recall, I talked about how we were hanging out in Miami because you were speaking at an event there. Tell us, just like high level, and then let's dive in. Where did the speaking thing come in, and how has it impacted you and your business?
What a great question that I am going to address by sharing a little bit of my past. So prior to running Restart CBD, I was a marketing manager, which is a general term. I did a lot of things for a tech company in Austin called WP Engine. They're now about 700 employees, but when I joined, I was employee 13. And my role specifically at that time was event management. And I scaled with them over 6 years of my life. And as a result of being their event manager, got to go to a lot of conferences, specifically in the WordPress space. So we were going to a lot of WordPress events, their community organized events. And so I was with them for 6 years. And I was going to these conferences like pretty much from the get-go when I started and throughout the tenure of my career there. And it took me 2 years of going to these events and someone kind of finally nudging me saying like, hey, you should speak. You know a lot about marketing and branding, and you're helping build WP Engine's brand, and you know a lot about WordPress and implementing it, because I had launched my food blog, which is built on WordPress, and becoming, the influencer that I am. And so I had all these experiences, but I never saw myself as the expert, someone who had something to say. I was always in the audience, absorbing. And so it took someone kind of nudging me, gosh, now, what was it, like 6, 7, 8 years ago, to say like, hey, you should say something, you have something to say, get up there. And now, really the rest is history. So that opened up my career from public speaking. So I've spoken at probably over, 50 to 60 national events, anywhere from London to Toronto to Los Angeles to Milwaukee, Denver, Austin, San Antonio. I've had the privilege of getting to speak specifically in the WordPress space based on that career. And so when we launched the business, that was already a tactic and a strategy that I was very comfortable with. And so it was just an easy thing for me to lean into was, I have something to say. I know a lot about this, especially from going through a lot of the hurdles that we, kind of high level addressed in terms of, finding a repayment merchant that's going to work with an e-commerce solution. And so because my background was WordPress, my background was WooCommerce, our platform is built on WordPress and WooCommerce. And I came from that world. I started speaking in word camps, actually, which are the WordPress community events, on my troubles building this business on WordPress. And so that was the beginning of me kind of, connecting my two worlds. And then that turned into, okay, well, now I've done a few speaking opportunities there. Let me go pitch myself to these national events. And now I've got a pretty steady flow. I'd say I'm probably speaking, every couple of months. There's something going on, some probably more frequently than others, but I love speaking. I love talking in front of crowds. I love sharing our story. I love the human connection. And so being able to get in front of people is something that I strive to do on a, consistent basis.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm going to unpack some of that just for some of the listeners, because that's a great story. And I know there's a lot of folks out there who, and I was one of them, before I started attending events, I always wondered, man, what would it be like to be a speaker? Mm-hmm. And while I'm for the most part, if you recall in Miami, I'm pretty quiet. I'm an introvert by nature. I don't say much. I really don't. I'm one of those, if you give me a microphone or a soapbox, I will grab the mic and I will stand on the soapbox.
but I'm a situational extrovert. And one of, let's just call it our gifts. You know, we have a lot of gifts and talents, but one of mine that I love to do is educate. And with my background in nursing, especially ER trauma, you know, education in a very rapid manner and taking complex subjects like myocardial infarction and explaining that to a woman in a hospital bed. Here's what's going on. It became something I could do, very deconstruct complex things quickly. So I wanted to bring that up because you also mentioned the words tactics and strategy. And I want the early startups, the ones who are listening, who you have an idea, to take some of these concepts to heart. Take some of the concepts, and I'm gonna point some of them out. So you had your story. Those 3 events happened that compelled you to say, I want to take a look at this as a business. You did the usual, and I'm saying this with love and respect. Let's get a logo, build a website, and go to war, and then realize, holy shit, there's a lot of issues like merchant processing. Let's call them business issues. And you learned. And again, I say this with total love and respect because you learned, you made pivots, you segued, you had your year anniversary, you have a brick and mortar store. And one of the tactics and strategies to build awareness, not only for the industry and education, but let's be honest, restart CBD, is you pitch yourself, and don't let that be lost. So folks, if you're listening or watching, she said, I was pitching myself to events. In other words, you didn't sit there in Austin with the spliff and say, I wonder who's going to reach out to me today. You were out there beating feet. Maybe it's putting in applications or getting known or being more, getting out there on your device, Instagram, Twitter, all those things. Is that fair to say that you actively pursued getting out there to the speaking circuit?
Yeah, that's actually a really great piece I want to kind of lean into a little bit more too. I was in a conversation with somebody the other day, and they were recognizing, because we also do a lot of collaborations and partnerships as part of our brand, and we have fun doing it because I'm a food blogger. I know a lot of the food and beverage, brands in town, and so we collaborate with our friends because it's a natural extension, natural skill that I like to lean into. But I had someone acknowledge out loud to me saying, oh, who's your publicist? Who's getting you all these opportunities, speaking, events, collaborations? And I go, thank you so much. It's me. So when you're looking at a business, who's the CEO, who's the co-founder, who's the head of marketing, who's the this, who's the that, I really feel like we as a team, but me in that role, I love my sister. I feel like I definitely do more of the pitching. But I'm doing that. I'm spending that time to not only run the business, but to also market the business in that way. And so I get it. Probably it sounds like, oh, well, it's easy for you. You seem very extroverted and like very knowledgeable in that space. And that is true. My degree in college was public relations. And so I'm very comfortable writing a press release. But when we first launched our business, I remember writing our press release and was like, I haven't ever done this for myself yet. Like I've always pitched other people. I haven't necessarily pitched myself. Like, how do you do it? And the reality is it's uncomfortable at first, but you just do it. And so to further expand on that, don't wait for someone to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, come speak at this conference. Come speak at my event. Come be on this podcast. I put I believe in putting things out into the universe. And so I tap my network. I say, hey, these are my intentions. I want to be on more platforms that allow me to tell my story. I want to connect with more brands who want to bring CBD to their consumers. I want to host my own event. So that's another aspect. We're talking about, media events that we're both speaking at that are someone else's events. Our brand loves creating our own events. So we have one coming up this Wednesday, actually 2 events coming up. We have one coming up this Wednesday. This is probably in the past for some people, but one that we're creating is, we call them Canna Conversations. And we're doing one on CBD for athletic recovery. So my sister is running that event. It's a meetup. We're running our own meetup saying, hey, open to the public. It's free. We want to talk about this. Those are opportunities for us to connect to our customers and provide value to them, but then also for us to control some of that conversation, meaning not control, like I want to, own the information, but like, how do I create a platform for which I can step up on top of? And so the more you talk about it, the more you become known about it. You create that safe space. And so we're doing that event. And then we got connected to a women's kind of it's a bra company for all intensive purposes, but they promote women's self, care and just like loving the skin you're in. And so we thought of an opportunity to connect our brand to their brand. And we're bringing together a woman whose background is nutrition, a woman whose background is body positivity. And then myself will be on the panel to talk about self-care through plant-based medicine. And that has really nothing to do with CBD or cannabis, but it's a subtle way for us to connect our brand to consumers who might be interested in talking about it. And so, just kind of thinking outside of the box. You don't always have to have a brick and mortar location that is your location. You don't always have to travel across the country. I know going and spending money at these events is a budget that we have to create, space for also. But think who your customer is, what your why is, and what your skills are, and try to connect those dots for yourself to find opportunities that allow you to do that.
Love it. I'm just writing that last bit down because those I like to break things into bullet points, like simple bite-sized chunks. And I like that your why, who your customers are, what are your skills, and what you just gave is a really, really rudimentary blueprint for essentially a cannabis or CBD startup. Is figure out what your why is, or the noble cause, who's your customer, your avatar, your ideal client, what are your skills, and then take that. I would also say, because those were beautiful, is before, if anybody's listening, that's not enough. Make sure you have something people actually want to purchase. If you're a for-profit business, test it first and then take it to market. And I love it. And I also just want to go back, is that those are all part of tactics and strategies. And in a even better world, especially if you're in the startup phase or you're thinking about it, is that should fit into a larger strategic plan. And the simple way to think about that, and this is something I like to share so anybody can get it, is think about the last time you went on vacation. Whether you drove 2 hours for the weekend or you took a flight, to Europe, think about all the things you did to plan for that vacation. And then think about planning for your business. So, but speaking of tactics, strategies, and where you came from and where you are today, the 1-year anniversary and your speaking coming up, where is Restart headed? Let's say at the end of 2020, where is Restart headed as a business, as a company? What are your big goals for the next year, for 2020, like 1 year away?
I wish I guess this will be like, the transparent reality mic drop for the listeners. I wish I had a better vision. And it's not that I don't have a vision and a goal and ambition for where we're driving the business, but I think because of the state that we're in, not the state of Texas, which is interesting in and of itself for cannabis, but I mean the state of e-commerce, payment merchants. The FDA still needs to deliver a lot of these regulations. In the state of Texas, we're still waiting for licenses to be released to even have some sort of timeline for cultivation in the state. I think those are things that will require us to pivot. And so I have kind of like a nice to have, but I also have okay, well, if this happens, then we're going to kind of shift this way, and this happens, we're going to shift this way. But I think a big thing that I'm focusing on right now, because we're in a position of having a payment merchant, and again, you acknowledge it, I'll kind of reinforce it. Unfortunately, not everybody's in a position to lean into e-commerce. I think just given the state of payment merchant services right now, because we have a secured solution because of our history in the space. We were with a payment merchant to build up enough, I don't know if credit is the right word, but history, that now we found a merchant who is willing to take a chance on us and let us operate online. But I know if you're a newer startup business, sometimes those might not be things that you have access to actually going and doing. I know the last time I was having the conversation a couple of months ago, it was like payment merchant X would let me do, sublinguals, but wouldn't let me do topicals, or wouldn't let me do edibles, but would let me do this or that. So those are definitely very real things as you're kind of evolving and evaluating where you want to grow your business, what's realistically possible. But so for us, because we have e-commerce and our e-commerce is up and running, and we do currently ship to all 50 states, I want to lean into that a little bit more and have that experience be a little bit more connected. So just kind of evolving the brand and making sure that it can scale with us as we're scaling nationally.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm going to quote you on something you said. Not everyone is in a position to lean into e-commerce. I like that. So because it still is a difficult, even today as we record this, it's still a year. You're talking about over a year ago, 2018. Here we are, literally a year in the future, and it is still a big issue. So, and I want to hit that home because, especially for the startups who believe that e-commerce is the simplest way to get in, you're right. It's the easiest way. It's also the hardest way to actually build and sustain an e-commerce CBD business. It's the easiest and the most difficult. So Shayda, if you were to reflect back, and I don't normally ask this question, but I'm actually really curious because you've like this pinball machine, bounced around, always forward, but bounced around. And you were looking back on your experience and what you know, and the things you've had to navigate through and over and all these things. What would you tell the somebody who's, let's say somebody comes to you and says, Shayda, I heard your episode and I want to know what are the one or two things you would recommend to me as a brand new somebody who wants to get into the cannabis or CBD industry? What would you say to them?
Really good question. I would nail it down to, and I know that this is kind of a trick answer, because I don't think that you ever fully solve it. In fact, I was just listening to a panel of speakers address this very thing, and her reaction was like, we've changed technology partners 6 times, even since launching. But she addressed to the point, if you can make that investment as close to where you want to be, not where you are, but where you want to be initially. So I think what set us up for success, for example, was at the time when we launched, Shopify was not willingly, openly accepting cannabis clients for e-commerce. Now I think there's, depending on who you talk, just a little bit of a gray area. Part of it was because of my background was WordPress, but part of it was evaluating the market and saying, if I'm really going to do this and build an online platform, rather than starting something and then 6 months later having to move platforms and lose some information, which again is inevitable, I think, as you're kind of navigating the legalities, it's going to happen. But like really look at what is a good foundation to build your house upon is the best thing that you could be doing. So you might not feel like, hey, you know, we're a super successful household name brand. I have all these customers buying and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars with me on a monthly basis yet. But if that was the case, what would that look like? And so for me, just given all the tech, both my background being tech, as well as what my problems have been, I think the problems would have been harder had I not at least identified, and I'll make a pitch for WordPress. WordPress is difficult. E-commerce is difficult, but at least WordPress is open source. And so that does come with some fallbacks and some benefits to it. But for me and for what my brand needed to do, that was a more known evil. And so if you can just have that foundation, that was a wordy, lengthy answer, but if you can just like literally think of the foundation for which you're trying to build your brand and your business and your house on, spend that time up front investing on who those tech partners can be, who those, you know, other business solutions can be, because it's going to really mitigate a lot of, I think, that pinball effect.
Yeah. I think the pinball effect is inevitable regardless, just
Yes.
because there's so many uncertainties. And even though we are moving forward in the current state and in our current state, both, it still is a wild ride, regardless of where somebody wants to land. But I love that. And I wrote it down because you did say, what is the best foundation to build your house upon? And as related to somebody who's looking to start up. And I love that because it's you have, in a sense, tapped into some of your natural skills and talents. You come from a tech background, you have a PR background, and guess what, folks? Now she not only has a CBD company, but she uses her skills, her gifts to actually promote and market and leverage what she's doing in the CBD industry. And that's something that should not be lost on the folks listening. Don't deviate too far from things you already know, especially if that's something that you're having difficulty wrapping your head around. The audience, the folks who are listening or watching, is think about, what do people come to you for the most? You know, is it advice? Are you good with the wrench? Are you really good? You know, do you have a green thumb? Whatever that is, think about what people come to you the most for. And that may be the lever that's going to propel you to potential success in this industry. So I love it. I really love this, and we could continue to talk, and we are going to be seeing each other here shortly in the next month or so, and likely on the speaking circuit, because we're both going to the same events, and I think Vegas, right?
Vegas, yeah.
Yes, Vegas, and super cool. It's a great time to be in the industry, and I think we're having fun too, right?
No, I think the other thing I'll add too is kind of like find your tribe. Like, to echo what you said, lean into what your strengths are. I'm a really big advocate and believer in strengths finders. It's a quiz. You can look it up, learn what you're really, really good at. It'll spit out 5 things. And for me, every time I've taken it, they've been very accurate. So lean into the things that you're good at, and then find your tribe of people. And so you've been a really great friend, and just, fellow member in the community of someone that I can kind of look to. And we're obviously doing very similar but different things. And so it's a joy to be able to be in community with people who are like-minded, who care about education, and who just like want to help connect the dots for people. And so I'm just privileged to get to exist in your tribe. So thank you for giving me that space today. Yeah.
That's cool. No, I appreciate it. And yeah, I love that. I love the whole tribe analogy, because it's true. It's, the phrase is alone you go fast, together we go far. And I don't know where it came from, or some proverb from somewhere, but where can people find you?
So they can find us at www.restartcbd.com. You can find us on Instagram. It's probably where we're the most active, at RestartCBD. And if you want to reach out, it goes directly to my inbox. You can email hello@restartcbd.com.
Love it. And folks, by all means, reach out. That's something, when folks say reach out or connect with me or Insta me or whatever, do it. Especially if there's an inkling, even a little bit of, I'm really curious about what Restart's about, or what Green Seed is about. We're going to put all those in the show links. So if you're driving, don't text and write these down, folks. Be safe. We're going to put these all in the links down there. If you have any questions, by all means, drop them. If you're on YouTube, drop them down below. If you're on iTunes, by all means, guys, or if you see this on Facebook, because we do post these to cascade these across a multitude of channels, ask the questions. This is how you learn and grow. And Shayda said it. One of the things she said, I have so many damn notes now, was she pitches herself. You take that step, you go out and seize it. And so when folks say, reach out, dang it, reach out, do it. Shayda, this has been cool. And I'm so stoked to meet Jennifer and Sydney someday too.
Me too. Get to meet the whole Torabi family.
The Torabis, love it.
Yeah.
Nice. So guys, this is a wrap. This isn't the end. This is probably just the beginning for you. And I'm super excited to have had this time with one-on-one with Shayda. Show notes will have all the contact information below. Remember, whether you're watching this on YouTube, WeedTube, or any other platform like Wistia, or you're listening to this, it's because you two are on a Weed to Know basis. Y'all have an awesome rest of the day. Thanks so much, Shayda.
Thank you so much, Rick. Y'all take care. Bye.